Have you ever wanted to be the first to know if aliens really exist? Well, with Nebula, you can be! Nebula is the streaming service that's home to It's Probably Not Aliens, as well as our YouTube channels. And the best part? All of our content goes up early on Nebula. So when we break first contact with ET, you'll be the first to find out. That's right, you'll be able to listen to the next episode of this show before anyone else. Plus, we post bonus content that you won't find any other place. And the best part? By signing up for Nebula at nebula.tv/probablynotaliens, you're directly supporting the show and both of us. So don't wait any longer. Join Nebula today and be the first to know if this time it really is aliens.
So we're talking about Alexander.
We're talking about history's greatest disaster bisexual.
No, but this is Alexander the
ever.
Great. Not Alexander Hamilton, who is also a disaster bisexual.
A disaster bisexual.
Yeah. Correct?
Well, no.
No? But the fan art.
Alexander Hamilton, obscenely straight.
But the fan art, Tristan.
Person.
Think of the fan art.
Yeah. I will be cursing Lin-Manuel Miranda for crimes against history for the rest of my life. But Alexander the Great, truly, probably most successful disaster bisexual in history.
Fair enough.
We have an expert on to speak about this today.
Bisexual?
What was that?
Most successful at being a disaster bisexual, or just most successful and a disaster bisexual?
A good distinction.
I mean, I feel like that's a good question. Well, I feel like he is a disaster.
Could be both.
He was a disaster bisexual, and then also I feel like few people on Earth have been able to conquer most of Eurasia. So I feel like being able to do that while also being a disaster bisexual is a pretty impressive resume to put forward.
Fair enough. Fair enough. He does have great in the title, though, so I think he's pretty good.
And
right?
just because we need to start a fight at the beginning of the show, and we have an expert, so is Alexander the Great?
Oh, don't ask the question.
Greek?
No, don't ask this question.
Is he Greek or is he former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonian?
I refuse to answer this question. I refuse to make enemies of one side or the other. I mentioned one thing about this one time, like with a question mark on the end, while I was at university, and I watched two of my friends really go at it. It really revealed
Scott,
itself.
I don't
Scott,
know
just so you
nothing
know
about this. Yeah.
Okay. So Alexander the Great is the topic of this episode today.
Yes.
And Alexander the Great came from a region of Europe called Macedonia, or Macedonia, if you want to be pretentious about it.
Okay.
Macedonia is a province or state, I don't know what they call them in Greece. Then there is also a country which is called the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, which was formerly part of Yugoslavia before it broke up.
Okay.
Both of these countries have basically dedicated a large amount of their entire national identity to being the home of Alexander the Great.
Okay.
To the point where this is one of the most heated, angry like, I thought that, like, Germany and France fighting over Charlemagne was, like, a big deal, but this is, like...
It truly is, like... I cannot stress enough that, like, national borders, there are, like, full-on political ramifications to this argument.
Is this like similar?
Geopolitical.
Is this similar to how in the States we have Ohio and North Carolina, both of which claim the Wright brothers, because Ohio is like, we're the birthplace of flight. North Carolina is like, but we're the actual place that they flew at, though. So technically, we're the birthplace of flight when you think about it.
Omar Najam would say to that the Wright brothers didn't even complete the first successful flight that happened in Evergreen in California, which is where he's from.
A secret third thing.
A secret third thing. So take that, Ohio and one of the Carolinas, North Carolina.
Yeah, one of them. Not even worth remembering.
Imagine, okay, to kind of elaborate. Imagine if that was the case. Imagine if that debate continued.
Okay.
But then Ohio spent several decades being a communist country, and North Carolina spent the rest of the time being a kind of fascist-y leaning puppet of the United States.
Okay.
And then the Cold War ends, and a horrific civil war unfolds in Ohio, basically you have what was one country for a long time, all of a sudden having to build new identities in a very short amount of time, because before this, being communist was their identity, and then before that, they were part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire or whatever. So
also imagine that they changed their names to, one of them changes their name to the Wright brothers arouse, and the other one changes just like a county into the Wright brothers were rouse. And that's...
I see. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for bringing it back to the Wright brothers, because that was like, it doesn't sound like the Wright brothers thing at all, but now it does again. So that helps me.
And then also layer the fact that there's like this extremely long and drawn out religious conflict in the region that's been going on since literally the times of the Ottoman Empire. So like,
now, do they have these things on their money? Because we have quarters for every state, and again, North Carolina says first in flight, and then Ohio says birthplace of flight, because they're even feuding on our own money about this.
So quarters are different in every state?
No. We have quarters are the same, but we have, just for like a fun novelty thing, we have the backs of each quarters. There are 50 of them. I think
the mint has to keep the collection thing alive.
There was a thing where you had to like collect quarters and like fill them in on a board and things like that. My brother used to do that. And then like, so every year they'd be like, here's 5 more quarters or something like that. So you would like over many years they'd like roll out like, oh, what's the next state gonna be? What's the quarter? It was a fun little thing. And now it just, no one cares anymore. They're just like, oh, I've got a California quarter. It's a quarter. Sure thing. Not actually collectible.
I will use this for my laundry.
Yeah, exactly.
We're getting rid of coins. Like, we just got rid of coins and they just like went away.
Yep.
Well, not all of them. But I mean, like, I feel like I haven't had coins in like years.
How do you shop at
Aldi?
Aldi?
If I have a coin, but the thing is, we got rid of pennies in 2012, and they just like it was shocking how fast they just like evaporated from the universe.
Yeah. So you need to be like us and have a penny lobby, I think, is what we have.
Mm-hmm. The zinc lobby.
The big zinc. I think that's
Speaking at the top of the zinc lobby is definitely aliens, and this is a podcast called "It's Probably Not Aliens."
Yes, that is us. We are a podcast that looks into ancient astronauts theory, Ancient Aliens, a TV show, and debunk some of their claims while learning about the real world history of really cool people and places. Maybe not sometimes really cool people, but of people, real people and places and things and whatnot. Because we've also talked about some really bad grifters on this show, so I don't want to say we're learning about the real history of cool people.
I mean, talking about good and bad people, I could also point out that the difference between Alexander the Great and Hitler is just recency in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So
I didn't want to say we're talking about really cool people on this show as a blanket statement.
He destroyed Alexandria.
Yeah.
What a cool
my name
guy.
is Scott. My name is Scott Nicewonder. I know nothing. I come to the show fresh-faced, only armed with a soundboard that sounds like a different sound that I can play as a fun thing, like this one. Sure. Why not?
That really sets the tone.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm Tristan Johnson. I'm the one who did the research and brought it in. And I am happy to say that we have Dale back on the show to actually talk about a subject that she knows a little bit about, unlike the last one.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I don't know. I feel like I'm going to really let you down because my knowledge on Alexander is pretty slim pickings because it really sort of straddles that line between it's largely history where I don't know as much, and then just little bits and bobs of mythology here and there. I can tell you he supposedly rode a unicorn into battle. I can tell you that.
That's cool. That's awesome.
He was extremely into his horse, so that kind of makes sense.
That's really fun.
But yeah, Bucephalus was his name.
Oh,
I love that for some reason.
Well, the thing is, okay, so this takes me back, and this is a good crossover for this topic and Dale, and that is,
Tell me.
the last D&D campaign I ever ran was a mythology-based campaign, and the last adventure that do you know the Everworld novels, Dale?
I don't.
Oh, I have just ruined the next 6 months of your life. It was the first post Animorphs K Applegate project.
Oh,
And it was about a sort of situation where 5 teenagers get into this weird position where when where they're in this alternate dimension where all of the pagan gods ran away to when they started losing followers, and they sort of took their last followers and went to an alternate universe. And then when they're asleep in this world, they go back to themselves in the real world. And so I stole that concept for a campaign. And the last adventure I had, they were in Alexandria, and they had to stop a descendant of Alexander from getting his old armor, which had his spirit inside, which if he wore it would basically have him have the uncontrollable need to dominate and conquer the world. And the big danger of that is like a huge amount of people are relatives of Alexander because of the horrible things that he did to the Mediterranean world.
Woo! Wow.
a lot to unpack there.
That's so much. Also, what a premise for a book series. I've just started reading Animorphs for the first time.
Oh.
Okay. Well, this one is like, what if Animorphs was made specifically for Dale Kingsmill?
Yeah.
But maybe you should because there's some people who might be like, who is this person?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Hi, I'm Dale Kingsmill. I make videos on the internet sometimes. And like a solid half of them are about D&D. And then there's also, I have a long history of making videos that are retelling stories from mythologies, sort of mostly Greek mythology, but little smatterings of other bits and bobs here and there. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're great.
Thank you.
They are great. One of my favorite channels when I was really hitting the D&D pony hard in like 2017, 2018, and I was like, and I still took a lot. I mean, I remember I had a game where I stole your Thieves' Cant whole thing that you set up.
Yes.
So, there you go.
Extremely
It's still doing numbers. Yeah. And so today, because you're so the last time we had you on, it was because your mere Australianness, and then we had an Australia story, so I thought we'd bring it in. But this time it's going to be more fun because we are talking about a subject that is like part of your like education and like your interest with Greek stuff. You're more of a mythology person, but this is like a history thing. And I knew I wanted to get you back on the show, so I gave you a list of all the things, and then you were like, Alexander.
You said the phrase Alexander and flying saucers. How am I meant to turn that down?
How can you?
I don't know anyone who could.
Impossible.
So that's what we're going to talk about today.
I have, and I pulled these so long ago, but I do have a clip of, I believe, David Childress telling us about Alexander the Great from the show Ancient Aliens, just to set the tone, set the mood. Again, I don't remember what he says here because I pulled them so long ago. So we will see what my big favorite best boy Dave has to say.
As Alexander's army was getting ready to cross the Indus and invade India, suddenly in the sky appeared these flying discs. And they began dive bombing at the war elephants that were part of Alexander's army. And what these flying discs did was cause stampedes within Alexander's own war elephants, who then ran amok throughout his army, tearing up the camps and everything. And after that, Alexander's generals met with him and they said, no, we're not going into India. This is it. We're going to turn back. And that was the end of that war campaign.
Pretty intense stuff.
The aliens have it in for the elephants, apparently.
I have so many questions. Does it imply the aliens were allied with India?
The thing is, there's actually something to this because it seems that so basically there's this whole thing where because Hindu mythology is, as we described, extremely heavy metal with like One of your work colleagues, Matt Colville, would very much like Hindu mythology. Like it's very like 80s big metal.
We've always said
a weapon that can destroy a city for 1 billion years.
The more
and
we've talked about their mythology on this show, the more like we've just continued to be like, that is the most metal thing I've ever heard. It's so rad.
Yeah,
everyone gives it to the Norse, but that's too easy.
Too easy.
Yeah, no, you have to have a bow and arrow that if it hits a city will destroy it for 10 billion years or something like that.
Sick.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so good.
Yeah. So that happened. And then the UFO people sort of were like, well, this is all alien stuff, obviously. But then the hyper Hindu nationalists started getting onto the UFO stuff and being like, actually, this just shows that like India was like this hyper advanced civilization before we don't dance around on the show, before the Muslims came, basically. And that's like sort of, it's turned into a reinforcing cycle of horror.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's sort of, so a lot of, and because, your average white American doesn't really understand Hinduism very much, then it's really easy to be like, India, aliens.
India,
easy,
aliens.
easy. Done.
I would like to add that I took notes for this episode. So we're doing a series about ancient aliens and technology. And so we're just dissecting like one episode where they talk about ancient aliens and technology, and they hit on so many different topics. And I was taking notes, and I was like, all right, here's the Alexander the Great. Let me take notes for this section of the episode they're doing. What I played for you was the entirety of what they said. And my notes are literally, that's it. So
okay.
Yep. No further explanation.
They just say things, and then they move on, and then
and then we're done.
And then we have to talk about it.
Scared the elephants.
That's it.
So anyway,
that's it.
And moving on. Just like bees. No, okay, so
take us a little deeper here,
apparently,
Tristan.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. That I learned that apparently, African farmers have like beehives near their crops because the bees keep the elephants away, so the elephants don't trample on their stuff and eat all their vegetables.
That'd work on me too. Okay. I also wouldn't trample their stuff and eat their vegetables if there were too many bees nearby.
Not a bee fan in general. I mean, I like bees conceptually, but I don't like them.
I'm glad that bees exist. I enjoy seeing a single bee.
Yeah. When there's more than one, it's like, I should not be here.
Yeah.
I live in a place that has a secret fifth season called Wasp Hell that exists from August until October, and so
almost time.
Wow, Wasp Hell and Spider Summer should really hang out.
Spider Summer, no.
Australia with spiders and that's the thing secretly. Ontario with wasps. Wasps are they're angry, and because what happens is their queens go into hibernation and they stop giving orders to their drones. And the drones typically they spend the most of the summer gathering sugar for the queen. Or no, they spend the summer gathering meat for the queen because wasps are carnivores. But then when the queen goes into hiding, the drones don't know what to do and they just become attracted to sugar. But they also have no direction, and they become as Wasp Hell goes on, they get more and more desperate and hungry because they don't know what to do. So they start getting after sugar, which is more the kind of stuff that people have out, and they start getting more aggressive and angry and like and desperate. So it's awful.
Good stuff.
Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, nature is horrifying. Okay, so here's the deal with Alexander the Great. So
tell me,
Alexander the claim.
Oh, the claim. Sorry.
Is that Ooh.
The claim.
Ooh.
The claim is
millions of people around the world believe.
Yeah, Alexander the Great went on a campaign, went to India, and found aliens. The description specifically that they saw great shining silvery shields that were spitting fire, and that these spacecraft supposedly caused panic across, specifically amongst Alexander's war elephants, which is very interesting, and that basically is it.
I mean, that's what my notes say. My notes literally say that's literally it.
Sometimes it's like maybe it's but I of course had to go way too into it. But basically, the whole idea was that there's this narrative about Alexander that he had this decisive victory over King Porus at the Battle of the Hydaspes River in 326 BCE and continue marching eastward. And there's this sort of narrative when you talk about the story of Alexander that he was doing so well. Everything was going so great.
Yeah.
And then they just got to the Indus River and just decided, nope, we're not going into
Can't
India.
do
We're
it.
going to go home. And there's always this idea that like he could have totally done it. Like he could have he never lost a battle, and like he would have just like poured over and gone into India, but something stopped him. And so this is sort of one of those
And
pseudo archaeological ways to start.
Probably aliens.
Probably
Couldn't
aliens.
have been of this world.
There's only one explanation.
And it's aliens.
It's aliens. Aliens with some sort of vendetta against elephants.
Yeah. So this is that's the thing. So here's a little bit more detail. So
Tell me.
the central event by these proponents is that they saw specifically 2 great shining silvery shields in the sky at a event in 329 BCE, which was near the Indus River, where they saw these things, scared the elephants. That's our story. The other one is that there was another incident in 322 BCE.
Okay.
Which is, you remember, just so that everyone remembers that BCE you count down as you
Count
move
down.
forward. So this is 7 years
this
later.
is later. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was in Phoenicia. There was the siege of Tyre, where there was another sighting of this flying shield moving in a triangular formation with smaller shields. And a larger object supposedly shot beams of light at the city, shattering the walls and defenses, which allowed Alexander's army to seize the city.
Okay.
Okay, so there are also aliens that are helping Alexander.
These ones are cool ones.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe there's
Alexander.
a proxy war.
Yeah. Aliens being like, hey, we hate those other aliens that were also here. Let's ruin their day.
See, this is the Cold War all over again. This is the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia and Greece all over again.
This is Ohio
it's
and
the
North
alien.
Carolina all over again.
Yeah. So and specifically they make a mention of the war elephants because my guess is that it's because war elephants are one of those things that people think is really cool about Alexander's army, and we don't typically use war elephants anymore. And
Not typically.
we kind of think that's cool.
Yeah. I just keep thinking of the big elephants from Lord of the Rings. That's the battle that's the battle sequence I have in my head when you keep talking about them. And I think it's similar.
In the Western mind, I feel like because every time we talk about the Punic Wars and the war with Hannibal, they make big references to. I mean, he did drag elephants across the freaking Alps to try and invade Italy, which
seems like a big effort. So
all the elephants had died by the time they got to Italy, though. Elephants famously hate mountain climbing.
Man, they didn't experience pizza.
Oh, that's so sad.
That's so disappointing.
Aw.
What a waste.
Somewhere out there on the internet, there has to be a video of an elephant eating a pizza.
Oh, and losing its mind. Yeah, for sure.
There's gotta be. There's gotta
If
be.
not, it'll go viral. It'll be called Pizza Elephant, and it would.
We need an elephant. We need
collection.
a pizza.
Yep. Let's get it. Let's get it sorted.
Does Pizza Elephant like Hawaiian pizza? Let's find out.
Let's find out. Yeah, just feed the elephant different types of pizza. See what its favorites
I mean, we spent
are.
so long feeding them peanuts, and I don't imagine that was good for them. Maybe we can move on to pizza.
They're like, whoa, pizza is way better than peanuts. Have you guys tried this? This is so much better.
Pizza? There's cheese on this.
It's cheese, it's bread, it's warm, it's great. Peanuts?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah, move aside eating 200 tons of foliage or of green a day. I don't know. That's way too much food. They eat a lot of food. They're one of those animals that has to because they're so big and they eat like raw plants that they basically have to be constantly eating or they die, like cows and stuff. Okay, so the idea though is that for some reason it was like because they want to draw attention to the elephants, because I think when we think of elephants, that's when we're like, oh, that's a cool thing, that's foreign. Hence why it was in the Lord of the Rings, hence why we pointed out when we talk about Hannibal and such.
It's exotic.
It's big. It's a big animal. It's got 4 knees. I think that's the only animal that has 4 knees.
We don't have that on this little island of Britain.
I don't have 4 knees. This animal has 4 knees. That's cool.
Yeah. So this has been popularized by proponents of people like it's been promoted. The only place I could find like a real like point like that said this exact thing from Ancient Aliens is from Chariots of the Gods again.
Of course. The place where it all started. Yeah.
Yeah. So Eric von Daniken seems to be the genesis of this story.
God, I need you know what? I have like a thing because whenever Von Daniken comes up, I'm always like Von Daniken, and I was like, I should have like a sound effect or sound bite for that. But I feel like I have one. I can do one of these two will work. I'll try this one. Von Daniken.
Oh, I
think
like
that's
it.
pretty good.
I like that one a lot. But should we compare to the other option just to see which one's better?
Yeah, we'll compare it to the other one. This one's more intense. This is more like a Von Daniken.
Oh, ooh.
So very different vibes.
I like both, but I do think the gut instinct, the first one, there's
First
something
one
about
felt
it.
better. Yeah, first one felt better. Thank you for your feedback.
Also, Mr. Nolan, thank you for coming back on the podcast.
Yeah, that's right. We've called that button the Christopher Nolan button.
Every time that comes out, Christopher Nolan is guesting on the podcast. That's a callback joke. I do things. I used to be an entertainer.
Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, we go.
Yeah. So that's it. That's the claim.
That's the claim.
That's the whole claim.
That's the entire claim. You went into more detail than the show did. So
yeah.
Pretty impressive.
So here's the debunking part that I'm going to get into, and you'll have a very fun thing. So the claim is that there are literally no accounts of these things from Alexander the Great ever happening in the time of Alexander the Great. The first writings of this seem to come from people like Von Daniken and Zechariah Sitchin, who seem to have got them from their ass. Because it just seems like it came from literally nothing.
It came from their ass. Interesting.
Yeah.
I adore the complete lack of any like written account that suggests anything close to this. Yeah. Just because we're talking about a period of time when writing histories down was so popular. Alexander was tutored by Aristotle, who famously wrote guides on how to write histories.
Yeah.
But no, nothing. Okay. Nothing. Yeah. This one is this one's a gut call for me. This one is just I think it probably happened, so I'm gonna write a book about it.
This is this is one of the things that comes up a lot. Like, you know that meme of like source and then like I saw it in a dream with Dr. Manhattan?
Yeah.
It's weird how often I research an entire ass episode and I realize that is it. Yeah. That is the thing.
That's him.
The only other thing that I've seen that's been similar to that is how many citations from like Graham Hancock, which by the way, there's going to be a season 2 of Ancient Apocalypse. God damn it.
Oh, cool.
But Graham Hancock has some citations in his book on things that he witnessed in a vision while high on hallucinogens, but that's a different.
Yeah. I saw it in my mind, dude.
Insight. That is insight right there.
It's the sight from inside of his drug hallucination.
Yeah, it's the sight, capital T, capital S.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the sight.
But as Dale kind of pointed out, if something like really big happened with UFOs that would have played a major part in, say, military decisions of Alexander the Great, it would have been written about because there are like 3 major historians that have like written extensively about Alexander the Great around the time of Alexander the Great, and they're like considered the big 3 being Arrian, Plutarch, and Diodorus Siculus.
Okay,
who all wrote tons of stuff. Also Quintus Curtius.
Sure.
So like lots of people have written about Alexander, and not too far from the time when he did things, because it turns out a guy almost conquers the entire world, or at least the world as they know it. People pay attention to that shit.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that you know is going to be forever famous at the time that it's happening.
Yes. So here is the closest thing I got, and I think was the inspiration for what these things are. And it's kind of clever.
Hit me with it.
So it comes from the siege of Tyre in 332 BC.
Okay.
So one of the things that they would do. So Scott, have you ever been in a siege?
In a siege.
Yeah, have you ever just been sieged?
Let's see. Today, it's July now, so my last siege was... Didn't have one. Never had one. Never been in one.
No? Dale, have you ever been sieged?
I feel like the answer is yes, but I just can't call to mind the details in this exact moment.
I had a vision once about being in a siege. Does that count?
Yeah, I think it does.
Basically canon at this point. Okay, so sieges, when you are the inside castle part of that, they suck badly.
Oh man.
And because basically you're stuck inside your walls and you can't get out. And people like things that are outside of walls, like food and stuff. So basically it's like, well, we haven't invented cannons yet, so we're gonna sit here until you get so hungry that you let us destroy your city, please. And you basically have to run your way through that. Your only other options are to basically do a sortie, which is sort of where you gather your troops and bust out through the front door and try to push them away, which is an extremely risky and pretty bad maneuver.
Deep.
Yeah. I like it.
Or it's to do various things to try and basically make it so costly to siege the castle that they have to leave. And the Tyrians...
Rats of Tobruk.
Yeah.
Apparently I know about fictional and real sieges. I did not know this about
pretty
myself.
Good.
So there's a lot of things that people will do to try and do that. And many of them are some combination of disgusting and painful. Like things like taking a big pot, filling it with excrement, and then boiling it, and then pouring it on top of the troops to scald them.
The boiling it
like
was
that.
an extra step that I kind of wasn't anticipating. Because I was like, I mean, look, you're already probably pooping in a pot.
Yeah. You gotta dump it out somewhere. Yeah. And you gotta dump that out somewhere. But yeah, the boiling it is like an extra step that is just like the people preparing it are probably not thrilled about it either.
Now, the Tyrians had one thing that was particularly interesting and effective, which was that they would take a bronze shield.
Okay.
And what they would do is put it on a fire so it would get nice and hot. And they would start filling the shield with boiling excrement, but also sand. The big one is sand. They'd fill it with sand, get the sand all super hot, and then they would basically hurl the shield off the side of the wall and into the attackers. The reason why this was so nasty was because the soldiers at the time, the standard military armor of a Greek soldier or a Macedonian soldier was a breastplate. And so you would throw the shield and it would sprinkle this white hot sand everywhere, and it would get underneath your breastplate and start burning your chest and stuff like that, if you can imagine. And also would look like a glowing white disc flying through the sky that would then pour down rains of hot fire that would get underneath your armor and cause horrible burns.
So I imagine you'd probably want to take the armor off as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's basically, it did a real life version of the heat metal spell.
Ooh.
That's nasty, huh?
That's painful.
Ooh.
Oh, God.
So yeah, it would make soldiers throw away their weapons, tear off all their armor, and expose themselves to things that the Tyrians also had, like arrows.
Arrows.
So yeah,
the more traditional tactic. Yeah.
So that was a pretty effective tactic that the Tyrians used in the siege. They did ultimately lose the siege, but this was a thing they did use that was very effective.
They went out with style, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And any descriptions of flying silver discs at the Battle of Tyre or the Battle of Tyre, Tyre or Tyre, I don't know, but this
could say.
Yeah, this would be part of that. This could be that description if there even was.
Yeah, it sounded like when you were talking about the white hot shields being thrown and talking the flying discs that were shooting laser beams at people. It feels like. This visually feels similar.
Yeah, with the shield acting as a kind of saucer, one might say. I could see how you would describe it as a flying saucer, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it wouldn't even be far-fetched. That's just what it would be.
That's just what it is.
Saucer. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you get a certified insane grifter like Zechariah Sitchin, and they turn that flying saucer into... Well, that's obviously the lizard people trying to get our Earth gold, so...
right. Earth gold is so much better than space gold.
It is. It's more valuable and better for creating plasma opera.
Yes. It's got all the nutrients you need for aliens. Earth gold.
Yeah,
it's good for
some
everything.
reason. For some reason, the fact that like most of the gold in the solar system is probably in the asteroid belt. No, we got to go for the tiny little bits on Earth.
Earth gold.
Can't go for like the like Mount Everest sized gold nugget that probably exists somewhere in the asteroid belt. Got to go for this.
It's more isn't it more fun to have a challenge a little bit, you know?
It's like when a challenge that you're far more advanced than, but somehow still also not advanced enough to just do it.
Yeah, I can't just quite get there. Yeah.
Yeah, you have enough energy to travel faster than light, but you don't have enough energy to just like smash atoms together to synthesize gold from hydrogen or something. Yeah,
can't do it.
No. So yeah, these are like that's the main bit, and so yeah, the quote. So the actual quote that I found that might be the thing comes from Quintus Curtius, who is a classical authority who wrote about Alexander, and his description of the siege of Tyre includes this quote. Furthermore, they, bracket the Tyrians, would heat bronze shields in a blazing fire, fill them with hot sand and boiling excrement, and suddenly hurl them from the walls. None of the deterrents aroused greater fear than this. The hot sand would make its way between the breastplate and the body. There was no way to shake out of it, and it would burn through whatever it touched. The soldiers would throw away their weapons, tear off all their protective clothing, and thus expose themselves to wounds without being able to retaliate.
Pretty clear documentation there.
Yeah. So Zechariah Sitchin took that and he cooked. He cooked with it.
He cooked something. I'll say that.
He cooked some excrement.
Yeah, he did definitely cook some excrement. so then like we kind of want to get into like the whole India thing. But then I'm like, well, who is this Alexander guy anyway?
Yeah, and why is everyone on such a first-name basis with him?
Dare I suggest
Alexander
that perhaps Alexander could be an alien?
Ooh. Whoa! Now that's interesting. I want to dig into that theory.
Right for these shows.
Okay. So the next sentence I'm going to say is going to possibly cause an international incident. So I'm just going to point this out.
All right.
Alexander the Great, as far as we know, was born in 356 BCE in Pella, the ancient capital of Macedonia. That is the consensus. I am not going to probe into that any further.
Okay.
He was the son of King Philip II and Queen Olympias, was educated by Aristotle. He got like a comprehensive education of philosophy, science, medicine, military strategy, and misogyny, as you would. And then because Philip II was assassinated at the age of 20, Alexander became king at a relatively young age. But King Philip II was also dealing with a lot of internal strife.
Aren't we all?
Alexander was able to quickly consolidate power and kind of put down these revolts and really quickly secured his rule.
It's honestly pretty lucky for him that he was young enough to lead a whole, military campaign across the planet. But he was old enough that he didn't just also immediately get assassinated.
Yeah, yeah. He hit the gold zone.
Goldilocks zone. Yeah,
yeah. Because to be a leader in this time, you either succeed your father when you are so old that you can't do like a bunch of crazy things, or you are so young that your attendants run the country for you, and if you try to fuck with that, you end up committing suicide by being stabbed in the back 17 times. So you So, yeah, the fact that he was in a situation where, like, the government was kind of in turmoil, that he was able to put down... He was basically like Kim Jong-un. Like, he was just old enough that he could deal with the politics of the day, and things were just crazy enough that he could actually come out on top, but young enough that he could actually spend the rest of his life building an empire, which not a lot of people got to do because, like, most kings would, come to the throne at like 30 or 40 and be dead by like 65. So, it was not, you wouldn't have a lot of time. And unfortunately, fortunately for the world, but unfortunately for him, Alexander didn't exactly have a lot of time either. So what he did was Alexander began a campaign against the Persian Empire and turned out to be really, really good at fighting Persians, mostly because the Persians so Alexander had this thing where he was novel for the time where he would train his troops on things to do with fighting. So he would be like, hey, what if instead of we just kind of run into them and see what happens? What if we like got together, put our shields in a line, put the pikes out and moved forward and like did stuff like, you know, do like the basics of training troops. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Persians were like this large, disorganized empire, very multicultural. Their army spoke multiple languages. There were like, it had like an old, because keep in mind, Persia's very old, even at this point, has like a military structure where like, you know, the people who become generals aren't necessarily generals because they're so good at warring. They get it because of like, you know, their family status or something like that.
Nepo babies.
Yeah. It had a Nepo baby, so like basically Persia was like a very big kind of paper tiger. It was not in a strong point in its life. And so Alexander basically did the equivalent of blowing on a house of cards, and he managed to get a lot of very decisive victories by like legitimately being very smart for his time on military tactics, because there wasn't really a whole lot in that time.
Yeah.
And then used it to basically conquer the Persian Empire. And then, just because he wanted to fill out his, he wanted to get all the state coins, he then went and found the old kingdom of Egypt and went, actually, I'm going to have you too. And so they became like the 500th people to conquer Egypt, then rule it, and then kind of become Egypt weebs, and then have their leadership turn into like basically adopt the Egyptian religion, adopt the title of pharaoh, and basically just like Egyptianize. And so
it happened a lot. It happened a lot.
Yeah,
Egypt's so cool. I get it.
Yeah, so when Alexander conquered Egypt and founded the city of Alexandria, he decided to take his friend Ptolemy and was like, "Hey, here you go, have an Egypt." And then Ptolemy became an Egypt weeb, and then he like became pharaoh. And what he really realized is that Egypt is this ancient society where like if you call yourself pharaoh and you do all the religious things, the people kind of won't care that you're Greek. They'll just sort of you can rule over very easily. And so the family was like, "Yeah, we'll just like play at being pharaoh and just kind of keep the thing going."
It's such a like situation where people clearly come in and go, okay, I actually don't know how to run a whole kingdom in the desert. But you guys seem to
I'm
have
19
that
years old. My friend just gave me this thing.
Seems real tricky, to be honest.
Can you guys show me how to like run the place? Yes.
Show me how you've done it before.
And the priest would have just been like, "Here, wear this hat, say these things on these days, marry your sister, and build a big triangle for you to be in when you die." And then he's like, "Okay, that sounds easy enough."
They love the triangle buildings.
So that basically happened. And then he went and conquered the Persian Empire, which was today would be like modern day Iran, but would also encompass good amounts of Iraq and the Middle East, and like almost to the coast, like huge amount of like the sort of not Levantine coast of the Middle East, but like sort of in the deeper parts of it, going almost all the way to like India, Afghanistan, like Pakistan, like that kind of region.
Almost to India. Almost. But something stopped him, huh? Something in the sky?
Perhaps. I do think it's really interesting the way that the journey kind of mimics the path of Dionysus, right? So when we talk about the developing cult of Dionysus, it sort of appears late in the game and then travels into the east, gets to India, learns how to make alcohol because that started in the Far East, and then comes back again, right? Like you just touch India and then you go back.
Head on out.
It's just interesting seeing like
that is
every now and then you get that same sort of journey,
same little cycle. Yeah. Oh, that's
there's various explanations you could have for this, and they're depending upon which ways you want to think about it. The first is that India has always been a major source of trade routes. If you're going through, it's part of the Silk Road. You're either going to China or India, because India is where all the spices are. It's where a lot of very critical resources that the Middle East was already very hungry for at this point, and Europe would eventually figure out that they were hungry for a few centuries later, or maybe about 1,000 years later. But the Middle East, like the Persians were already like, yeah, we want this Indian shit so bad, it's so good. Give me that cinnamon. And so there's that, but then also the fact is that India has a large amount of protection that comes from the fact that to basically get into India, you are going through mountainous terrain and also riverlands. Two things that invading armies hate. One secret trick for protecting your country is be surrounded by like the edge of like the largest mountain range on Earth that at one point, at one part of it literally has Mount Everest. And then also have like because this is like the mountain range that goes like from like Nepal all the way down like through Afghanistan into like Pakistan. And then there's also huge rivers like the Ganges, like the Indus, and all these places where rivers very hard for armies to cross.
Make it hard to get to. Yeah.
All that kind of stuff means that like it was very hard for like no real like empires like burst into India and like ever had like a big thing until the Mughals, which happened like in the way later. And that was sort of the beginning of like that was when like Islam came to India and like all sorts of lots of things like lots of India changed quite a lot in that time. But like that's why like it was always such a big deal. Now in 327 BCE, Alexander started to move towards the Indian subcontinent, who battled King Porus at the Battle of the Hydaspes River. So the Hydaspes River, I'm just going to kind of give you like a thing about where this would be. Today, that is sort of, I'm trying to find a word that I'm like, it's basically like the border of, oh boy, talk about me getting close to places that you can't say who owns it or else you're going to cause a war.
Oh, no.
It's very close to where Pakistan and India, or at least a region that India and Pakistan both claim is theirs, called the Kashmir region, which is still like still one of the highest chances of causing a nuclear war on Earth right now is this region. Just because we need to touch on every single extreme border dispute that is going to cause a war someday.
Yep.
So it's that sort of region. And but the thing is that the Indian, despite beating Porus, like Alexander came out, it was still and actually Porus became an ally of Alexander afterwards, which is another thing that happened a lot in the Classic Age. Like, man, you're real good at fighting. Want to join me? You want to go kill stuff with me? And they're like, yeah, I'll kill stuff with you.
Your other option is that we kill you.
Die.
Yeah. I mean, it's like
you die and I find another one of my 20-year-old friends to run your country.
It's the literal definition of if you can't beat them, join them, right? Like that's really it.
Yeah. And so he invaded India. He then did not he stopped because of various reasons. One
alien and then another alien. Like, I understand
one
this.
alien. Yeah. One is the fact that Alexander had been constantly campaigning at this point for like 12 years. And his troops were exhausted. Yeah. And the thing is that they punching through this region to get into India was, again, mountainous, full of rivers, very dry, very hot.
Yes.
This is like the region like where like today the US military is having issues. Like, remember like you got, because like a little bit of this region goes into Afghanistan as well. And this is like the region where like it's so easy to hide. It is so hard to get through because it's just dry mountains, rivers. Like nothing is fun to get through on there. And then imagine you have fucking elephants to throw into the mix there too. Elephants don't love deserts.
Why do we keep bringing elephants over mountains?
That's their own fault there. They didn't have to bring the elephants.
And
they
also,
just want to chill out and eat vegetables.
Has elephants. You're not even gaining an advantage.
They've got their own elephants.
Yeah, it's true. So they were exhausted. Two, and that meant that morale was really low because even though Alexander was winning all the battles, he was like, so you remember this? There's this little war that happened in the 1940s called World War II.
I'm not sure I know that one.
Yeah.
It was the sequel to the first one they made.
Yeah, the unnecessary sequel to the First World War.
Yeah.
So when Germany invaded Russia, they won a lot of the early battles of the war, doing really successfully. The problem was Russia, not a fun place to be when you get into the winter months. So when it was like negative 45 degrees and your troops are not in like full winter uniforms, even if you're winning battles, morale's going to be low.
Yeah. They don't like it there.
I know my morale would be low in -45.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if the Fairbairn brothers taught me anything, you experience 15 degrees and you're like, this is the cold. I am literally going to die
I
of
hate
frostbite.
it. It is literally 15 degrees today, and I'm freezing.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Meanwhile, in this hemisphere, we've been in the middle of like a heat dome where everything is the hottest it's ever been.
Yeah, I'm like, it was like, Humidex 35 degrees, and I'm like, I'm going to die.
It's been truly terrible. Ugh.
Oof.
And I'm like, 35, she's like,
35,
that's like spring,
I'm
right? Like, that's
look,
that's
hot.
a warm day. That's
It's
you wear
hot,
shorts.
don't get me wrong. Is it super uncommon? No.
Yeah. Yeah, what's it called? I was seriously planning on moving to Australia at a certain point, and my friend was like, Melbourne's being hit with what they're just calling a thunderstorm dome, where we're just going to have nonstop lightning for like 3 weeks. And it's like, what?
What's stop with all the domes, weather? I don't need any more weather domes.
Where else are we meant to keep our thunderstorms, Scott?
We put them all in Melbourne. That's how
We made a dome in Melbourne and we put the thunderstorms
We
there.
put them all in there for safekeeping.
Yeah. So the other part too is that King Porus was the one who had the war elephants that Alexander was using, and that was Alexander's first interaction with the war elephants. And this is the thing about war elephants, and this is another part of the reason why they didn't make it into India, is that the thing that makes war elephants successful usually is that they're fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
If you have never seen an elephant before, and then you just see this giant creature with huge horns coming out of its thing, and its like skin is like 1.5 inches thick, and your swords can't like. Just imagine like if you had not had the reference, if you had not watched looked at all the cardboard books as a kid, and you saw this and you had never seen. It'd be like today seeing a dragon.
Yeah.
Like it'd be like a literal monster.
This monster, this is a beast that has not one, but 2 weapons growing out of it. Yeah, that is quite scary.
Yeah. Yeah, and then think about this so you're going through this like horrible terrain. You're roasting in the desert. You're like having to portage, which is like really, really hard. And then you're like, we just fought the first of these Indian kings, and he had these fucking monsters at his beck and call. And like, we're about to go into this continent where they have tons of these things. Because we also hadn't killed off all the elephants yet at this point.
Not at that point in history.
Not yet.
So, yeah.
We're speed running it now to make up for it. We got to get those gold splits.
Exactly. God.
I'm sorry.
You're horrible. So when they got to the Hyphasis River, which is in modern day, it's called the Bias River, and it's in northern India. It's sort of in the Himalayas, for all you India heads, it's in Himachal Pradesh.
Yeah.
So it's in the Punjab region. So all my Punjabi buddies say hi.
I didn't know if you were waiting on us. Like that's not. I don't think we qualify.
We left a gap for them to say hi.
Yeah. Well, what's called a lot of Punjabis who moved to Canada get into the trucking business, which means podcasts are probably a big part of their day. So there you go. Great people, great food. My sister's boyfriend is a really nice guy, and he's Punjabi. Anyways, so when they got to the Hyphasis River, Alexander's troops basically mutinied and said, like, fuck you, we're not doing this
Looking at it
anymore.
now, it really cuts across the whole north here as well. It's not really a great spot.
Goodness.
Yeah, there's not really like exactly. So they mutinied and said, yeah, fuck it, we're not doing this. And then so they turned around, and then Alexander was like, well, that sucks. So then Alexander being like, well, my friends didn't want to attack the monster continent with me after going through the desert, the mix of mountain, desert, and river. So then he went and hung out with his buddy Nebuchadnezzar. I believe that was his name.
From the Bible?
Maybe not.
I mean, maybe there's more than one Nebuchadnezzar.
Maybe there's more than one.
But
it would surprise me, but
it
I've been wrong before.
Feel like a common name, but I guess I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He went to Nebuchadnezzar the Seventh.
Oh, so there were at least 2 of them. There were at least 2 at some point.
There you go. At this point, he was 32, and Scott, at that point, you don't want to go to war
I'm a
anymore.
prime 31 right now. I could go to war at any moment for the next month, and that's it.
Be warned,
Actually,
Scott.
I don't want to say that. Yeah, I actually don't want to say that publicly. That's not. I don't want to. I don't want anymore.
You know what happens when you turn 32? You die of a mysterious illness.
Yeah. So Nebuchadnezzar. So in the court of Nebuchadnezzar II, Alexander, quote unquote, died of quote unquote fever, and they're always very vague about what this was.
So
and maybe,
fit and young that he's just conquered the world, and he's just he died. He just died.
So how's that happen?
So there's I'm of two minds. I'm of two minds on this because one, like, classic age do be like that. You accidentally kick a nail and get a cut, and then you're dead the next day, even if you're healthy. Or two, yeah, maybe he committed. Maybe he died of fever. Fever being stabbed in the back 17 times by his generals or something.
I mean, look, his particular kingdom did have a history of assassinations. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing it out there.
An interesting data point to consider.
Maybe it was the aliens.
Yeah,
that's
maybe
what
it was the aliens.
And all I can say is, as someone who is 35, checkmate Alexander.
Get wrecked.
Outlast.
This is pretty good. Yeah,
I remembered. I have the same birthday as Jimi Hendrix, and I remember on my 28th birthday, I wrote down "outlive Jimi Hendrix" on my birthday.
Interesting. Mine. The one that I've been looking forward to pretty much my whole life as someone who grew up, in a very religious household is crossing. Yeah, it's crossing over to 34. Just to really rub it in that guy's face, huh?
Okay.
Take that, Jesus.
Take that, Jesus.
I know Annie Oakley was born on the same day as me, and she died at...
That makes sense. You have Annie Oakley energy.
Thank you so much for saying that. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said. And she, she achieved more at age 15, but it looks like she died at 66. So if I can make it past 66...
see, the only other... I only know two
Most
famous
people do. You made it past the age of 5. You're pretty much, you got a pretty good shot all the way
I only
to
know
66.
two famous people who share my birthday. There might be more, but I only know two off the top of my head, which is Sean Connery, who lived to be 90.
Like 90
and
or
then
something. Yeah. Tall over there.
Billy Ray Cyrus, who is still alive. So it's me and him right now.
He's still out there.
Yeah, the race is on.
Time will break his... Time will come for his achy breaky heart eventually.
Maybe Billy Ray Cyrus goes to the court of Nebuchadnezzar II.
And then whatever happens.
Dies of fever. Yeah. Okay. So the thing is, there's a few things I want to talk about, which is one, elephants, scary things that can carry people on their back. And
they can. They shouldn't, but they can.
I just thought war elephants were... I thought war elephants were a cool concept, but then I also remember that elephants are like these like gentle, intelligent creatures, and it's like, oh my god,
they didn't ask for that.
I kind of feel the same way about like the Roman Colosseum, where I'm like, yes, I know it's horrible. I don't support it. I would never want a Roman Colosseum to happen now. But there is a part of me that's like, it's sick that it did happen. It's
sort of cool. It's sort of rad as hell that is a thing that people did.
As long as it exists.
I am glad that Ridley Scott could make a movie about it.
Yeah. As long as it's far enough in the past that I don't have to think about the humanity or the like the
animal cruelty
aliveness of these animals.
Exactly.
Like as long as I can keep it in that distance,
then it's kind of
cool. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel about war elephants.
Now the other thing too is that I want to kind of talk about why like Alexander the Great actually is so important, because here's the thing. Alexander the Great is basically all right, let me see if I can go through. So first of all, was a brilliant military strategy, was basically like the person who started the phalanx formation and also got into combined arms tactics, which is like, what if we shot arrows at them and attacked them with spears? Then we get both things. And those were like things that made him like literally take down an empire multiple times its size in both space and people, which was genuinely impressive. Yeah, and basically military leaders for like the next like, several centuries would study his tactics, and like he became like he set the benchmark of how a lot of warfare worked.
Isn't the phalanx one of those things that they say is like there have been 5 great developments in warfare, and I think one of them was the phalanx.
That sounds like something people would say.
Yeah, it's very much like don't just
At
charge
least
into
me.
the enemy, lock your shields together, and then move forward with spears. That's
I
like
love
the
it.
sort of the whole concept, right? The other thing too is that he had like a lot of very good political and leadership instincts. Like one of the things that he would do is when he would conquer a place, he knew how to like find local leadership and like let them have a lot of local autonomy, but have a lot of respect for their own religion and their way of life, but then also adapt some like kind of Hellenistic stuff to it, and like built an empire that was able to manage itself fairly well until he died, and it literally immediately all fell apart. But some of the places he did set up, like Ptolemaic Egypt, lasted for hundreds, if not like I think Ptolemaic Egypt basically lasted until the Romans basically destroyed their dynasty. And that was a long time. The Romans were still getting off the ground. I was like 300 BC. I don't even think like Rome was like.
We talk about this every time. Egypt is so old. It's so old.
It's obscene how old it is.
Did
you know that there were still mammoths alive?
Now
when
that's
the
a
pyramids
war
were built?
elephant.
Egypt makes me think of, you know that bit from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy where they're like, okay, you might think it's a long way down to the corner shop to get, a bottle of milk, but that's peanuts compared to space. That's how I feel about Egypt when we're talking about history.
100%.
It's like,
The last pharaoh of Egypt, Cleopatra the Ninth, is closer in time to us than the first pharaohs of Egypt.
Unbelievable.
That's Cleopatra, like the Cleopatra, the one that you think of, that one.
That one.
Yeah.
Yes, her.
So okay. Yes, yes, she can. She also died of fever, asp fever. Anyways. Okay, so and like some of the cities he founded, like Alexandria and Egypt, are now like major centers today. But one of the big things that I think that is like super key to pick up is that he did like the Hellenization of the world, and this is, I think, kind of like this is my part of like kind of playing into the Tristan Makes You Sad, but not really. It's just one of those things about he brought like today in like shitty white supremacist circles on the internet, there's this whole idea of like Greek philosophy and Greek thought being this like uniquely Western European thing. One of the things that Alexander did was he brought Greek thought all the way to India, and ideas learned from the Greeks were adopted in every civilization that he moved through, and integrated in different ways. One of the movements or sort of cultural products that integrated Greek philosophy into it so hardcore that it is the basis of their entire religious law is Islam. The entire concept of Sharia and like the entire concept of how is like a lot of like Islamic thought and theology directly based on Aristotelian thinking and Greek philosophy, and to the idea that many of our like the fact that some of these documents exist, like Plato's Republic and like all these things, were translated from Arabic. And so in many ways, like Alexander's conquest of the Middle East brought Greek thought that would then influence one of the most important religions that has ever existed on like Earth. And was extremely influential to the point where like there's like you got like Dionysus in India, like there's statues of Dionysus in India, or things like that, like supremely and in a way tied all of these cultures to each other in a way that like they're still kind of connected today. Like when you think like India, the Middle East, North Africa, and like Eastern Europe all sort of have this continuity that you don't see like as much with like China or like there's this sort of like he took a several worlds that were not really connected to each other and brought them together in a very profound way that would just shape the course of history.
Took a bunch of disparate worlds and collided them together, and everything was fine.
And like Alexander would be used as a he would be used as a symbol for many people who come afterwards. Like any wannabe dictator, general, leader would look to Alexander, for example. The Romans loved Alexander and tried to adopt his sort of idea into them. But then also, this has also been bought into things like,
oh no,
white supremacist ideas of cultural superiority and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the reply to that.
That's how we feel about that.
Not good. Don't like it.
And yeah, the thing is that one of the reasons why I like to do this, one of the things I've been really getting into lately is the podcast If Books Could Kill. Low key, as a podcaster, one of the best podcasts on the internet right now that I think more people should be listening to. But one of the things that they point out is that a lot of ideas, anecdotes, authors, or stories are completely based on stuff that's been completely fabricated, stuff that completely made up, and then nobody challenges these reviewers and journalists and policymakers. If something buys into a narrative that they want to believe already, then they're not going to be willing to poke into the story and find the falsehoods, because if it's something that they kind of want to go along with, then they'll go through that. And I feel like I wrote this several months ago when the author of Hillbilly Elegy, a extremely terrible book about the source of poverty in America, is now the current vice presidential candidate. So just to show making shit up and then it not being challenged because it fits your pre-assumed worldview can get you that far. And there's literally a If Books Could Kill episode of Hillbilly Elegy. So that is...
I just because we start this episode by making fun of people just being I'm just going to decide that there were aliens involved in Alexander's... And they just said it.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
They didn't bother coming up with sources or anything. And then it's but also here's an example of real-world ramifications of that exact behavior. Oh, no.
Because when I talked about all those things about the power of Alexander, he also cemented a narrative of a singular powerful leader that has been used many times. The Crusaders apparently used Alexander's legend as a symbol of the West's dominance over the East and inspired Crusaders when they invaded the Middle East.
I think you'll find that they're called the Holy Lands.
Okay.
Little Crusader joke for you all out there. For all the Crusaders listening.
A large chunk of our audience are Crusaders. There's a lot of time to listen to podcasts while you're crusading, so...
Yeah. Oh, God. I should not have found that as funny as I did. Which is also very funny because I love how far-right groups will highlight Alexander's heroic virtue, and they say things like he was courageous, he had a lot of clemency, he had chastity, and I was like, let's think about that last one, because I'm pretty sure Alexander is living rent-free in probably a significant portion of our DNA as a result of this conquest.
If there's one thing I know about Alexander, Alexander the Great.
We're not exactly at we're not exactly at Genghis Khan levels here, but yeah, he chastity was not a thing. But also, as we kind of alluded earlier in the episode too, that Alexander the Great has been used as a nationalist symbol in the Balkans, which is sort of the region of today would be all the former Yugoslavian countries, but also Greece and Bulgaria, Bosnia, that whole area. Alexander is especially in a lot of these former communist countries in there, trying to build a nation when there wasn't a sort of cohesive national identity before. Alexander came up as one of the ways to do so, which means that for example, you see these Macedonia, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia adopts Alexander as part of their national identity, and she puts their flags on it, puts on their flags, and has these big parades, and it feels very weird of kind of weird nationalist displays you see of the comparison I saw was to the Orange parades in Northern Ireland, which is another kind of place where the narrative of history.
Another great example would be
really
the quarters that I mentioned. I think it's exactly like what you're talking about, just like
absolutely.
Just like the quarters. I guess you weren't around. I feel like you were on the show early enough before the Tristan makes you sad section of the show came.
Yeah. It's a whole
new
segment.
segment.
We have a stinger for it, but sometimes Tristan forgets to tell me he's doing it. So it's too late now, but it's a good one. It makes you go, oh.
Oh. Wait, mine was too nice.
It started,
There you go.
Oh,
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm realizing now I was born in Alexandria, Louisiana. Is there any connection? He founded Louisiana. He conquered Louisiana.
He also founded.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he
that makes
conquered
sense
Louisiana
now.
and founded Alexandria. Yeah.
He's also, I sometimes think about this because, I mean, what else am I going to spend my time thinking about? I think about the really common names and how many of them are, they do, reflect this sort of widespread cultural Christianity that, took over the whole Western expansion of blah, blah, blah. But, that idea of like all these common names we have, so many of them are biblical. And then in the middle of them, you have Alex, you have Alexander. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. He really, the influence was
potent.
Pretty
very potent.
Yeah. You'd be like, why do you have such a mundane name? And that's like almost like if saying like, man, Tolkien's like fantasy was really like mundane, like just elves and dwarves and stuff like that. Like that's what everyone does. And it's like, no, you don't understand. You're getting the cart before the horse there.
You don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in a different reality, we would say the same about Nebuchadnezzar. Similarly, we would have been like,
so
Nebuchadnezzar,
real.
are you sure it's that Nebuchadnezzar? Whereas like Alexander's just like, there's so many.
See, my mind didn't go to the Bible. My mind went to the Matrix.
Interesting.
Because Nebuchadnezzar is the name of the ship in the Matrix.
Yeah, the Nebuchadnezzar.
That's where the
Welcome to
Bible got it
Nebuchadnezzar.
from.
Do you think that if Nebuchadnezzar was famously, do you think that if Nebuchadnezzar was a really popular name, that we would be shortening it to Chad?
Chad.
Maybe
Chad is short for Nebuchadnezzar.
Maybe it is.
Yeah.
Who founded the country?
I didn't even realize that there's the name Chad right in the middle. Nebuchadnezzar.
It's because in kids' church, anytime a story involved Nebuchadnezzar, the way I remembered how to spell it was Nebuchadnezzar.
Now that's a good like 3-name person. Nebuchadnezzar.
Oh yeah,
it's a pretty awesome name.
Good.
It's one of those. It's one of those things where like
I feel
everyone
like there
takes
should be a
names from the
drag
Bible.
king whose name is Nebuchadnezzar.
Oh, that's so good.
There you go. If there's any aspiring drag kings in the audience, and you were just looking for the right name, you could do especially like Persian chic. Oh man, you could do
Historic?
It. Just drag because you know how like the Persian kings had like those like very like sculpted beards and stuff. Oh, you could do a lot with that.
Oh yeah, all that cool jewelry.
Yeah.
So I think that's is that the episode?
that's Alexander. This you can tell this episode has Friday night energy, or Saturday morning energy for you, Dave.
What we learned today is that elephants are scared.
That's
of
what
UFOs.
I learned. I stopped listening after that part. So I don't know what you guys have been talking about for the last hour.
And that nobody dies.
No
of
one
fever.
dies of fever.
No one dies of fever at Nebuchadnezzar's court.
No.
I did now learn how to spell Nebuchadnezzar now. So that's very, that'll come in handy in my day-to-day. So thank you for that, Dale.
This is how you know that I've never been
You're
in church,
so
because
welcome.
I literally did not know that Nebuchadnezzar was a name from the Bible. I just thought.
I don't know if you had Veggie Tales, Dale, but I've been introducing Tristan to Veggie Tales.
Oh.
Yeah. We did.
Yeah, I had to physically restrain myself from singing several of the songs as you said that.
Did
So,
one
yes.
recently about the wall. What was the wall called again? I forgot. All right, Jericho. The Jericho. And I played him.
Jericho.
Yeah, you know it. I played him this song on the show.
But she isn't gonna fall. Yeah.
So is this gonna get better or worse because next season's topic is
I think there's gonna be some good Veggie Tales stuff going on.
It's gotta be,
So good. Anyway.
Okay. Spoiler alert. Next season is Angels.
Dale, thank you so much for being here and being on our show, making the time.
Plug your pluggables.
Yeah, where can people find you online and all the stuff that you do?
Oh goodness. The people can find me sort of all over the internet. I'm one of those terrible people who has not consolidated my handles. So the easiest way to find me is to type in the name of a platform and then Dale Kingsmill. But you can definitely find me on YouTube at Monarch's Factory.
Yeah.
There's just one example of it not being my name.
It's kind of your name, though.
But,
it's a play on your name.
It's kind of my name, though.
You can go to
you
can go to various things that she does on the internet, like YouTube. You have the Eldritch Lorecast. You have a Twitter thread you wrote in 2022 where you can find out what your D&D character is based on your sun, moon, and
is that
rising
one of the
signs.
first things that comes up on Google? I love that.
No, that's a thing that I saw that and I was like, that's cool, and I bookmarked it, and I've been waiting for an opportunity to use it in a game at some point.
You know, I made that because I saw someone else do it, but I thought this was wrong and boring.
That's the best reason to do anything. It's like, this was someone else's idea, but theirs was wrong and boring and bad.
They executed it badly and I could do better. Yeah. And you know what, though? I made it and then I sat on it for like close to a year because I couldn't bring myself to post it because I thought it was me.
I will say, I did it with my son's signs, and I got a halfling fighter with a folk hero background, and I was like, that is the most adorable
That's so
thing
cute.
ever.
That's cute as hell. That's cute as hell.
That's so good. You can follow more of this show on platforms by just following @ProbsNotAliens on Twitter and anywhere else, really. Tristan, what do you do on the internet?
I'm a communications guy. Oh, wait, no. I have...
You got a real day job
what do
now.
I do on the internet? I'm like 3 weeks into a real day job, but I have a YouTube channel called Step Back where I make stuff about why history is important for understanding the present, and I'm working on a video. I'm working on 2 videos. I'm working on one about BDSM.
Okay.
Which is about why BDSM shows that session zeros are good.
BDSM, D&D.
A lot of letters there, yeah.
And I got one about how private equity is destroying everything.
Big range on your channel.
But Scott,
yes, this is my favorite part because Tristan has been for the past 45 seconds looking at my channel trying to find an old video of mine.
No.
Yeah, really? Are you sure?
Scott, if I wanted to know, this seems modern enough. If I wanted some Scooby-Doo lore that I probably didn't notice, with a picture of a circle.
That is my most clickbaity.
It's a sandwich.
It's got a red arrow with a red circle circling a part of a sandwich that Shaggy is holding. It is
Tell you what,
so good.
Your thumbnails have been clickbaiting me. I mean, not clickbaiting because you actually get the content, but I've been getting got by those thumbnails. Well,
that means a lot. Thank you. I've been enjoying making them because I do
your
photo
videos
shoots.
Are so visually good.
Oh, thank you. That really means a lot.
Like the content is good, but also visually just really good.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's on my channel, by the way, NerdSync, NERDSYNC. It's all one word, and I talk about comics and cartoons and all sorts of fun stuff. And I, as of recording, I literally just today released a video about how AI is stealing YouTuber content, which is good. Woo. Great stuff. Love it.
Oh, great. Yeah. We got roped into the same thing, huh?
I think we're all going to be there.
It took one of my videos.
Really?
But like the most bizarre one. I don't know how that one got caught up in the phishing net.
I'll probably cut this out, but do you know if that video had user uploaded subtitles? Because I
think it might have.
It's scraping subtitles, and I think it is not scraping the YouTube auto-generated ones. It's only scraping user uploaded ones, and I think that's determining what people's videos they're taking.
That's interesting though, because I do have
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's stopping them from doing more, because they took 29 of mine, and I definitely have more with user uploaded captions.
Yeah,
but.
I'm kind of like I'm like Zen in a way, because I'm like, I feel like it's going to be like COVID in the sense that like everyone's going to be like, oh, like I got by the thing, and then I'm like, we're all going to get got by the thing.
We're all going to get got. I've still never had COVID. Just saying. I'm a little newborn baby. I've never had it. Yep. Anyway,
I derailed us in the middle of
we're ending the show.
Outro.
You can support this show by signing up for Nebula at nebula.tv/probably-not-aliens. And if you sign up using that link, you would be helping us out forever. And also you get episodes early, and all sorts of fun stuff. If you want to do it in a more direct or, with a more variation in what you want to support, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/probsnotaliens, where we have an extra Q&A episode that we put out every season.
Yeah.
And also early episodes.
D&D episodes that are fun. So that'll be interesting too. You can leave reviews of the show on whatever platform you're listening to. It really helps us out. And you can tell your friends about the show too. That's another great way to support us is just go to everyone you know and just in the middle of their workday, shout at them the name of our podcast. And
I did promote the podcast in a meeting today.
Whoa, look at you. Practicing what you preach.
Setting an example.
Yes, I love it. And a great place to send people is a very simple website, probsnotaliens.com. It's got links to everywhere where you can find us and other links and things like that. But that is it. So this is how we end the show, because this is, again, a thing that we've done that we've not warned people about. I'm going to say, until next time, I'm Scott Nicewander, and then you will say...
I'm Tristan Johnson.
Tristan goes last usually, because you say the outro.
Yeah, okay, so, you go after Scott, and then I'll go after you.
That's all it is.
Gotcha.
All right. So until next time, my name is Scott Nicewander.
I'm Dale Kingsmill.
I'm Tristan Johnson, and the truth is out there. Probably. Unless it is the way that you died in Nebuchadnezzar's court. I don't know.
The truth is out there. Maybe we'll find out what happened. Maybe not. The truth...
What happened 2,300 years ago in ancient Persia? We'll never know.
The truth...
Jim Perelman would say that we cannot go down into the past like a deep-sea diver and see what happened. All we can do is create the best story possible with the evidence available to us.
That's good. That's good.